Hi there. Have you been confused by all the information that is available about nutrition? Have you ever thought to yourself, I want to be healthy, but I don't know how in this crazy world? If so, you're in the right place to learn everything you need to know about how you can be your healthiest self by improving your digestion. We'll learn how to make the easiest and healthiest sourdough bread to the truth about yeast and sugar. Join me each week and we'll talk about everything from junk food to your protein needs. We will even dive into some unspoken topics like, what is my bowel movement trying to tell me? Or how can my emotions possibly affect my digestion? For more information on how to be your healthiest self, visit us on healthyselfwithfood.com, where we provide resources including recipes, cooking classes, and coaching appointments. I believe to completely take care of your whole self, that it includes what you put on your body. So I'm very happy to introduce you to our amazing sponsor, Gervine Family Farms, where you can find the best smelling soaps and healing body products on the market. Gervine Family Farms is the home of all natural, real soap and body products that truly heal your skin. Do you regret washing your hands because after you do, your skin is dry and irritated? If so, try the healthiest soap on earth. It is made from coconut oil, essential oil for the smell, and herbs or spices for the soap color. All the ingredients are so healthy for your skin that you could eat them, but please don't eat the soap. It doesn't taste good. There are no fillers, synthetic dyes, fragrances, or low-quality oils. Real soap doesn't strip your skin of all your body's natural oils, thus requiring you to use lotion so that your skin doesn't completely dry out. Save money on lotion by using real soap, and you will never be able to go back to your fake beauty bars that you call soap. Find us at GervineFamilyFarms.com. That is GURVINE FamilyFarms.com. My name is Kaisa. I've always been intrigued about being my healthiest self, even from a very young age. I have been continually studying and testing out all sorts of health options throughout my life. I'm thrilled to be a certified health, life, spiritual, and soul purpose coach, and for the last 10 years, I have enjoyed working as a nutritional counselor in a naturopathic doctor's office. As a nutritional counselor, I guide patients through protocols for their particular health ailment prescribed by their doctor. I also have almost 30 years of experience in making healing food for my 6 children, husband, and friends. This doesn't mean that my food always turned out or tasted good, but they sure were good sports as I learned many tricks and tips that I now can share with you in your food journey. I recently discovered Ayurveda, and I am currently studying to become a digestive specialist. Ayurveda is the knowledge of life. The basic principle of Ayurveda is to prevent and treat illness by maintaining balance in the body. Let's dive into today's topic. You're in for a treat today. I have the pleasure of talking with Jade and Julie Coyle, who are the owners of Grand Teton Ancient Grains, located in Teton, Idaho. They are the biggest supplier of Einkorn products. They sell to companies like Azure Standard, who buys all of their Einkorn products from Grand Teton Ancient Grains, as well as Amazon. There are about 8 people or suppliers that provide Einkorn products on Amazon, and 7 of them buy their supply from Grand Teton. They started the company in 2009, and they started it for the love of the grain. And all of their grain is organic. They also do other ancient grains, which we will touch on as we talk, but not go into a lot of depth. So one of their websites is ancientgrains.com, which includes all the information about the other ancient grains that are available out there. And one of them being spelt is something that they did by a spelt farm in 2019 from a farmer that they knew well that was done with the business, but had followed the same practices. They'll go into detail about that as we talk. But we wanted to mention that there is information about the other ancient grains if that's something that you're interested in. And then the other website that is all about einkorn is einkorn.com. So if you're looking for recipes or more information specifically about einkorn, you can find it on either one of those sites. It has the information as well as where you can purchase products. All right, let's get into the good stuff. Thanks for joining me today. We're going to jump right into the first question. Tell us about what einkorn is.
Okay, so einkorn is the most primitive form of wheat on earth. And einkorn has a totally different type of genetic makeup than modern wheat, in that modern wheat has been hybridized naturally in the wild. Plants just hybridize in the wild naturally. And that process leads to different outcomes. And einkorn, the process that it has gone through is very interesting, because it first must have, this would have been maybe 5,000-6,000 years ago, hybridized in the wild with a goat grass. And that's the same with modern wheat. It's connected with modern wheat through the same grass, whatever it is, but it hybridized with another plant as well. Modern wheat did, and went on to. So they can kind of be considered distant cousins, I guess. But when you look at it genetically, einkorn has two sets of chromosomal pairs. Both are the A chromosome, so 14 chromosomes in total, whereas modern wheat has 42. It has 6 chromosomal pairs. So a very big difference between einkorn and modern wheat is just simply that modern wheat has naturally hybridized in the wild, and that has led to it containing the A, the B, and the D chromosome. And what does that matter? What is it about this chromosomal makeup that really matters? And that may never be answered. It certainly hasn't been yet. But the way that it can be measured is through the toxicity of the grains. And so there was a study done in 2006 by the Scandinavians, and they were looking at the toxicity of wheat, and they compared it with einkorn. And einkorn was much lower on the toxicity scale. And so at that time, they thought, well, there might be some opportunity here for people who suffer from digestive issues. It could be, obviously the extreme side of that is people who have like celiac disease or whatever, and they are in a whole different class of, care medically and whatnot. But a lot of people deal with stuff that's way in front of that, right? And digestive concerns and whatnot. So that's where einkorn comes into play, is people who are very concerned about what wheat is doing to them. Either they're seeing rashes on their skin, or they get bloated in their stomach, or they get headaches. These are outcomes of toxicity that is in modern wheat. And that doesn't mean that, like a lot of people say, well, modern wheat was genetically modified. And modern wheat has not been genetically modified. In fact, it has only been naturally hybridized, even since So I was speaking with, for example, a researcher from Oregon State University, and she talked about this. I said, so is it possible that there is GMO wheat somewhere in our wheat supply? She said, no. In fact, GMO wheat is illegal in the U.S., and if it was detected anywhere, it would shut down our exports immediately. In fact, there was a scare in, I don't know what year it was, maybe 2012, when they found some GMO wheat, or they thought they did, and all exports shut down everywhere. And so U.S. was sitting on all this wheat until they got this sorted out. And so it is a very big thing. So it's not that modern wheat is GMO, it is not. But it has been naturally hybridized to bring about results that aren't desirable for some people. Some of those genetic strains are not working well for people.
One of the things that modern wheat's been hybridized to contain is higher protein, right? The higher the protein, the fluffier the bread. So people feel like, oh, if I get high protein wheat, then I can make gorgeous whole grain bread. And that's true, but the protein's in the gluten. So it's got more of the stuff that kind of wrecks our guts in order to produce this result. And so now we see a lot more of the sensitivities than we used to, and that's, I mean, in my opinion, that is a high likelihood of why.
Yeah, they've been bred for a certain outcome on the baking side. Yeah.
That is very interesting. So is einkorn better for your health?
Well, I think that a lot of people would benefit from having einkorn in their diet as opposed to modern wheat. And that's partially due to the toxicity of it. But it contains a different type of gluten than modern wheat. We'll get into that when we talk about the baking side of it. But as far as the health side it goes, you'll notice when you bake it sort of digests by the yeast, and whether you use natural yeast or commercial yeast, it digests more quickly. And so that is the same in your gut. Your body can digest it much more easily than modern wheat. And because it can digest it more easily, it can get more of the nutrients out of it. And einkorn is actually, when you measure it, we bring in modern wheat and we look at it and we look at einkorn. They test coming out of the combine at high protein. Einkorn is often higher than modern wheat. It's just that it's a different type of protein, a different type of gluten.
If you compare the nutritional profiles side by side of einkorn and wheat, einkorn does better. Higher in this, higher in that.
Yeah, so it's higher in antioxidants like lutein. That's what gives einkorn breads a slightly yellow color to them. That's the lutein. And lutein is really obviously good for your eyes. It has other antioxidants which are good for helping to fight cancer and whatever sort of things go on in your body that might be going awry. Your body can utilize those to help correct it. But it's higher in beta carotene. It's higher, like I said, in protein. And there's a few others where it's also higher. I don't have the type. We have a little link on our website about it. But
Oh, good. Maybe you can tell us about that.
what we do is we compare the types of wheat in this profile, and it has a line for every type of grain, and it shows the nutrients of them. And einkorn stands out above all of them in those characteristics. And so it's really, it is more nutritious. And I'll tell you why it's more nutritious. If you grow 1 acre of einkorn versus 1 acre of modern wheat, on that acre of modern wheat, you'd get, let's say, 110 bushels in this area. So 600 pounds. Einkorn, if you harvest it and then dehull it, because einkorn grows with a husk on it, and we'll talk more about that, but if you dehulled it, remove that husk, so you're getting down to the naked grain, apples to apples comparison. With einkorn, you're going to get about 30 to 35 bushel, okay? So off of the same acreage, you're getting a much more nutrient-dense plant. Is the way. That's why it tends to be higher in protein. It tends to be more packed with nutrients, is because it's not fighting with all the other plants to make a more nutritious grain. And so some people think, well, why does einkorn cost so much money? And that's really what it comes down to, is the production cost of einkorn is much higher. Einkorn is, we grow several different ancient grains, and einkorn's our main grain, our flagship, but it's not the most profitable because there's a squeeze on the farm side to get this produced, and then we know the end resulting cost is high. So
That's interesting.
And the reason that the yield is so much lower is because einkorn is a diploid and modern wheat's a hexaploid, which has to do with how many grains are on each plant.
kernels per head, yeah.
And so it's not that the plants themselves are sparse, it's that you just get fewer kernels off of each plant. So that's, and I have heard dietitians, even MDs talk about how complex modern wheat is and how that's a drawback. And that is one beautiful thing about einkorn is the simplicity. I've even heard them reference the fact that modern wheat is a hexaploid, and so it's not supposed to be. It's got a lot going on. A lot of chromosomes, a lot of.
That's interesting. It's not supposed to be. So is einkorn considered an ancient grain?
Yes, it's the most ancient of all the wheats. The oldest wheats were hulled grains, and that means that at harvest they come out with a hull on them. That's Einkorn, Emmer, and Spelt. And so each of those come with this husk or hull on it that has to be mechanically removed. And in ancient times, they probably ground it into and then sifted out the hulls, or they do come off fairly easily with a little bit of friction, and we have machines that do it. But the idea is these three ancient grains were anciently in Italy were called farro. So there were three types of farro: farro piccolo, which is einkorn; farro medio, which is emmer; and then farro grande, which is spelt. And so in Italy, they commonly refer to, of the three, emmer is farro, but emmer is actually a durum. It's better used for like pasta and stuff like that. But these are the three different main ancient wheats. There are other ancient grains, but of the wheats, einkorn is the most primitive, the most ancient.
That is super interesting. How is your einkorn grown? Where do you grow it?
So our einkorn is all grown organically. Anything that you buy on our website is completely 100% organic. And what that means is that we don't use any commercial fertilizers, pesticides, herbicides, nothing in the process of preparing the soil or growing it or harvesting it or any of that do we use any chemicals. And so that organic process helps our customers to know what we don't use in the process. But as a customer, I would also be concerned about the things we do. Because you can just plant stuff anywhere and it will grow, but it might not be as nutritious as if the soil was fertile. And so we're located here in eastern Idaho, and the climate here is an interesting one because the growing season is very short. And it's amazing for growing grains. It's cool and it's dry, and yet it's warm enough that we can get the heat we need for grains. It's a perfect environment for grains. Some of the wheat grown here is the best in the country because of those characteristics. It's a great place to grow einkorn. Our place is located in Teton, Idaho. We grow einkorn right there in Teton and surrounding areas. We have farmers who grow for us because we don't actually have enough acres to grow all einkorn that we need to. So we have partner farmers who are organic and follow the same practices that are nearby that grow for us as well. And we also, in addition to following the organic standards in terms of what we do and don't use, we do a lot of things to help build the fertility in our soil. And fertile soil means healthier plants, right? More nutritious. And so we do a lot as far as our farming practices to help with that. For example, we take all of our straw that comes off of harvest, and einkorn has a lot of straw. It's an abundant producer of straw. And we take that to the dairies and the feedlots, and their cattle turn it into compost. And they screen it and they turn it and they do an official composting process, and we ship it back here and put it back on our fields. And that process of getting them the straw and then bring it back as compost builds fertility in the soil. And we do other things too. We brew a microbial tea. What that does is it allows us to build the ecology of microorganisms in the soil so that they can extract the nutrients from the air and from the soil that the plants need. And we use trace minerals in that process as well. The trace minerals feed the microbes and allow them to, all the enzymes and everything to work properly in the plant so they can extract those nutrients, move them up into the plant, and carry them to the ultimate place, which is where the grains are located in that plant. And so these are some of the things that we do. And beyond that, probably the biggest thing we do is crop rotation. And crop rotation is, if you looked at some of the fields around here, they're planting, for example, barley year after year after year in it, or maybe they'll go a few years of barley and then potatoes. And so we are utilizing this crop rotation to help build the health of the soil as well. We like to use alfalfa because it really gives the soil a rest from the grains, and it builds nitrogen in the soil, which grains need. So when we take that alfalfa out, there's a big supply of nitrogen for the grains to grow with it. And that crop rotation is really important because it ultimately feeds the healthy plant at the end of the day.
I'm not the soil brains here, that's him. But I am a student of health and I've studied, minerals and things like that. And one of the things that impresses me that Jade does is not just focus on the big three, right? If you
Nitrogen,
yeah,
phosphate, and potassium.
yeah, if you, go, if you study lightly, you'll learn that that's what you need to put in your soil to have things grow, right? But actually, there are like 100 minerals that are best, and things will grow without the rest of them, but they're not great.
And you get disease and pests
Yeah,
and
yeah.
things like that.
And it's just it's like the soil's like, wait, I'm not complete, and so it's open to probably
Problems.
weeds, and I mean, it's just a healthier soil just produces a much better.
So you don't
product.
notice those problems.
No, and testing the soil, making sure that it's not just the big three that are being, watched for, but the other things, and it just creates a very nutritious product.
Yeah, and it's very difficult to do regenerative or agricultural or organic farming without cattle. People are really down on animals, but they do not understand how important animals are to this earth. When we test the compost, it has, like Julie's talking about, all the different micronutrients, in terms of minerals, as well as the main macronutrients. It has all of those in it. It's a very wide profile. Whereas if you go get commercial fertilizer, it's going to have nitrogen, phosphate, potassium, and then you might put some sulfur in there, and maybe a little bit of copper. But you get that compost and you test it, and it has just a long list of all of the nutrients that are in it.
Nice.
And that is there in the proper order, the proper balance. And that's the big thing with soil is the balance and the health of that soil. And there's a lot that goes into that it changes from field to field. Like this field we planted the organic einkorn in this year. We've been working for 3 years to increase the organic matter in that soil. And it started off at like 1.7, and we got it to 2.9 something, which for this area, that's a pretty big jump in 3 years. And I attribute that mostly to the microbial tea that we're putting on it. It holds water better now, so we don't have to irrigate as much. And the plants are healthier, the leaves are big, whereas when we first started, the alfalfa leaves were really small and they were yellow and they had holes in them, and so you could tell the plant was not healthy. And so we built that soil up, and it is amazing to see a healthy plant and how big of a difference that makes. It's very rewarding to see that.
That's really neat to have that comparison.
Yeah, and then like with einkorn, it's the same. When you see it grow, when the heads are nice and big and full, you can tell that the plant is getting. And this area was affected by the flood, the Teton flood, and it went right through that farm. And so it's a gravel pit, pretty much. It wiped off the topsoil. And so we are recovering from over the decades of this flood still, but it is neat to see that field right now is our highest organic matter field of all of our fields. And it's kind of been our test field since we've really started adopting some of these practices. So we're happy to see the progress.
And it's kind of funny because, this area is full of farmers, most of them not organic. And there's a lot of naysayers about that, can't be done, like whatever. But it's been kind of funny how some of the farmers will drive by this particular field that he's talking about and be like, "What are you doing?" And well,
they're impressed.
doing our thing.
It's healthy, yeah.
They're impressed with the health.
Yeah.
That's nice. Well, can you tell me a little bit about how people can order einkorn? Because obviously not everyone's going to live near where you are, as I am so lucky to be, but they're going to want to still have access to your products. And then maybe tell us more about the other products that you offer. I'm not aware of those.
So einkorn.com is the best place to buy einkorn from us. And the site is pretty old. We're actually in the middle of redesigning that. The site will become more about featuring all the recipes. And that's something that Julie from the very beginning has done a lot on, is recipe development. Before there were any other recipes on the internet about einkorn, she was putting them out there. Starting with some very basic ones, but now Julie can make almost any dish using einkorn. I think you're the same way. You've learned how to do this with einkorn, and it does take some adaptation. So Recipes, I think, is a big way that we can help people. But on einkorn.com there, you can go to buy Einkorn, and we have several different ways you can buy it. You can buy it as einkorn berries, just the whole grain, or you can buy whole grain flour, or all-purpose einkorn flour, and then we offer it in pails for long-term storage. And so that's the best place to get it. And our entire model has been developed around the idea of how do we get these grains to people as affordably as we possibly can. And so we've designed our box size, our bag size, everything around filling a box and getting the most in there so that we can officially get it to people. So you'll see that at some point in there, on each of those products, you'll see you can get free shipping once you get to a certain point. And everything there is designed around helping people to get the best deal that they possibly can, and we aren't paying any excess in shipping because things that, boxes that aren't full and whatnot. And anybody that orders from us can just know that we have a satisfaction guarantee, which means that, if a box shows up broken, you don't need to worry about it, we'll replace it. We insure them to make sure everything's covered, and if you have any problems, any concerns, we just want people to know that we stand behind our products and we want to take care of them. Our other website is ancientgrains.com. You can also buy Einkorn on that website. It's all the same pricing and products there, but we have other ancient grains like Khorasan, spelt, emmer, rye. And we do have some just regular hard white wheats because some people still bake with that it's not ancient. But anyway,
organic.
But it's all organic. Everything that you get is organic on those sides.
And maybe you could mention, for people who aren't familiar with the word Khorasan.
Yeah. I guess we haven't talked about that ancient grain. So it's also an ancient wheat. And if you have ever heard of kamut, kamut is a brand name for Khorasan. So the name of the actual grain is Einkorn. I'm sorry, not Einkorn. So it is Khorasan. My brain skipped a beat there.
That's okay.
So the name of the grain is Khorasan, but the brand name is kamut. And so Kamut International has done a really good job of growing and developing their brand, and they make an amazing product. And we've decided that instead of doing the Kamut brand, that we will just grow Khorasan under our own standards, and that way we can always be responsible and in control of the supply, and we know everything that's gone through, and we can grow it here on our farm, obviously, and all that.
So Kamut is not a grain.
Yeah, it's just a name, company.
That is so
It's
interesting.
Like Kleenex,
Okay.
right?
Yeah,
We refer to, the Kleenex, but it's actually a brand of
tissue paper.
tissue, yeah.
So it's Khorasan is the name of the grain. That's one of the ancient grains.
That's right. So some people have been buying, Food Nanny. They sell a really nice all-purpose Khorasan flour. We don't sell Khorasan flour yet, but we will.
So just
and
berries.
Just the berries right now for people who mill at home.
I do have a question about, you had mentioned all-purpose flour versus just like the
Oh,
whole,
yeah.
whole flour. Will you tell us the difference in
Yeah,
those
it's a
two?
good question. So whole grain flour is obvious. We mill the grains and the flour comes out, right? We aren't extracting anything out of it. But an all-purpose flour is the same as the whole grain, except that we remove about 9% of the most coarse material from that flour. So it comes out looking like a white, yellowish type of flour. It still has the lutein and the yellowishness from that einkorn, but the bran, 9% of the product has been removed, which is mostly bran. And so it ends up being a little bit easier to bake with. If there are people that have challenges with whole grain, as far as it being palatable, or some types of recipes don't work as well with whole grain, all-purpose flour is a good option for them.
Do you feel like you're missing a lot of nutrition from the bran, just from what you know
The
about
most
bran?
nutrient-dense part of the plant is in the germ and in the bran. The other part is carbohydrates. You're getting most of the carbohydrates. You're getting most of the germ, and a good portion of the bran has been removed. That's why it turns light in color. And so you are giving up some of the nutrition, but you're still getting the benefits in terms of digestibility and whatnot. But the other thing that comes with the bran is the fiber. And I don't know, that's a big part of, in terms of health, you're missing out on that, right?
I mean, it's huge. It's like your fiber going with your carbohydrates slows that absorption into your bloodstream, right? So we personally, the only thing that we use the all-purpose for besides when I'm developing a recipe or whatever to put on the side, But as far as our own personal usage, the only thing that we use the all-purpose einkorn flour for is pie crust, because it just doesn't hold together the whole grain.
Okay.
It just doesn't quite hold it together. So
So you would recommend using the whole wheat
oh yeah,
einkorn, and most recipes work. That's good
Yeah.
advice though, because
And we offer the mill too, and something we don't advertise on the site, but you can get a discount on the mill if you buy one of our free shipping items on the site. So if you buy a free shipping item and then you add the mill, it'll automatically add a discount to your order.
so tell us more about the mill. What is the mill called?
So when it comes to making your own flour at home, it's actually not hard at all. You just need one of these countertop grain mills. And the one that we like is the mock mill. It was invented by a guy named Wolfgang Mock from Germany. And he started, actually, he was part of the team that did the Como mill, if you've ever heard of that. And then more recently, he started his own company with just the mock mill. And he made some developments that I think are significant to the mill, and some, as a home baker, we probably wouldn't notice the difference. Como versus mock mill, we wouldn't notice the difference. But some of the top bakers have tested with them and found the mock mill does a little better job for them.
we always laugh because in English, saying mock mill makes it sound like it's sort of a mill, but it's not. It's the best mill we've ever used. It's stone. I don't know if you mentioned that, stone to
Yes.
stone.
Stone mill, right?
Yeah, and that it's only called that because of the last name of the man who invented it, right? So it is a little bit.
That's a good clarification.
It's a real
It's
mill.
a very
It's a good point.
mill, and it's cute. It sits on the counter, and I mean, it's just lovely too, because I mean, everyone knows if you bake or do your own flour or whatever, that the nutritional value is preserved for a very long time in the whole grain. As soon as you break that whole grain, it starts to depreciate. And so when I am baking bread, I literally put the bowl underneath the spout of the mill, and it goes right in, and then I mix it, knead it, and bake it. It's like immediate. And so we do not keep, we could, but we do not keep ground, flour around. We just grind it when we need it. And when we put things on the site, I'm not sure if all of the stuff on our site is already this way or if we're just moving that direction, but we try to use the weight so that it's perfect and exact every time, because we want people to be home millers of their flour, so that it's the healthiest it can possibly be. It's super, super fresh, but in order to do that, we need to go by the berries.
Yes. And I'm glad that you said that, because I have a mock mill and I use it, and when I grind it, it is a lot fluffier and lighter.
Right.
And so that's what I'm assuming you're alluding to,
Yes,
is that
a
the
cup of
measurements
that.
isn't going to be the same as a
That is
settled.
sitting. Yes,
Yeah.
that's right.
Well, good. Thanks for touching on that. That was going to be one of my questions for sure. You mentioned that you do have, one of my questions was going to be, do you have sales or deals on ordering einkorn, I'm going to say berries, in bulk, because I know they come in 25-pound bags. But you kind of mentioned the mock mill thing. Is there anything else you want to tell us about what's available?
So everything on our site is designed to reward the people who are ordering in bulk. And you'll see that reflected in the pricing. So if you order 15 pounds, you can come to you in 2 days shipping, get there very quickly. But if you order the 48-pound pack, and again, it's designed to fit in a certain size box, so it falls within the UPS and FedEx requirements, right? There's all these rules about this, and so that's why it's weird sizes like that. But the 48-pound is going to get you the very best deal that you can get. That's not to say if you ordered a ton or whatever, you should probably reach out to us if you're going to get a 2,000 or even 1,000 pounds, depending where you live. Depending on shipping price, at some point it can become cheaper for you to just reach out to us directly. But, for the average person, 48 pounds is quite a bit, or a few 48s. And that gets them a very good price.
And is that flour or the berries?
That's the berries. The flour, the largest you can get is 40, and that's when you get the free option there as well.
Okay. So what's the best way for people to contact you to do what you would call a special order? Find out about where the price break is or how they should order it from you.
Yeah, so if you go to the contact us on einkorn.com, there is a bulk link, and you can fill out that application there. And it just asks some very basic information, so we kind of know a little bit more about you, and then we can reach out to you and coordinate with you. And usually that's me that does that. I reach out to those people directly and help them to just figure out what is going to be the best way for them, depending on how they want it, in pails or bags. Because that also opens up different packaging. Like when you order from us, you just get the 50-pound bag or whatever, right? But most people won't get that when they order from the site, because we're shipping in a box that needs to arrive to them under the UPS or FedEx guidelines. And so when we ship it on a pallet, we can package it however you want, like in 50-pound bags, or we can just send you a tote of it. It changes the affordability and the flexibility as it arrives to you.
One thing we should probably mention is that since a lot of the listeners of your podcast are local, that they should know that if they put the coupon code in at the end called local pickup 10, then they can come to our shop and get it and save 10% or something, because we don't ship. Shipping grain is expensive. So since there may be some local people listening, that's a good thing to know. But I also want to say that we're very committed to getting Einkorn to be available and affordable. And Jade already mentioned this, but I just wanted to reiterate, because sometimes people, because it is more expensive than wheat, sometimes they look at that and they just make assumptions that we're marking it up a ton. We are not. The farming practices, the fact that the yield on the field is so much lower, we're not living a high-fat life off of the off of the proceeds from Einkorn sale. That's not happening. But we're always doing more and more. Like, we built our own mill and our own de-hulling capabilities, so that we didn't have to ship it back east and then bring it back. And so we're able to lower the price, and we're continuing to implement things like that so that it can be the most affordable that we can make it for people.
No, that's great. I know I did some comparing. I don't have the figures in front of me. Maybe I'll go and do that. But I found it to be about $3 something a pound, would you say, off the top of your head?
Yeah.
And if you compare that to, and it's not even comparing apples to apples, because if you're comparing it to whole wheat flour at the store, or because it's not berries, that it can be $1 something a pound. But then if you go to organic, it's going to be more in the two.
That's not Einkorn.
Yeah, that's comparable. And so
Interesting.
for me, it's a no-brainer.
Yeah.
But I thought it was important for those that are interested. There's a lot of people that are interested in making bread, but a lot of people are scared by the complexity of what it would look like to make bread. And I know you guys have taught a lot of people to make bread, and then I went even one step further to make it even easier, just because I'm not a skilled bread maker. And so that's been very enticing to a lot of people to be able to make bread. But some of them are very interested in it looking the same way, meaning the nutrient density, because that's really, what the bread tends to come out is in a very healthy loaf of bread. But you can take it all the other way to do all sorts of bread, right? So there's all different ways. So I wanted to make sure that we educated everyone about what einkorn was. And saying that, there are other ancient grains that could do very well with bread. I just personally don't have experience with that. So I appreciate you guys sharing more about what ancient grains are, what einkorn is, and how people can get that. I just want to make sure that we don't miss any good information. Is there anything else that you can think of that you want to mention?
Well, I was going to talk about types of einkorn, actually, if that's okay.
Yeah.
All right, so there are, I think, 350 varieties of einkorn.
Wow.
Domesticated. There are, on top of that, I think around 200 and some, or maybe 100 and some, of wild einkorn varieties. Einkorn is considered wheat, but in the world of taxonomy, it's kind of, it's almost like a different species. I mean, it is in the grass family, obviously, but it's it has always just different varieties underneath it, and that's true of spelt and but not new, but Einkorn just has a lot more, and that's because it's you can imagine it's its own family. And if you had a field of Einkorn next to a field of modern wheat, they wouldn't crossbreed because they're so different from one another genetically. But two fields of Einkorn will. So naturally, in the wild, different uh, varieties of Einkorn have developed in the wild. And in the 50s, the U.S. sent researchers throughout all the world to gather different grains and seeds. And they canvassed all over the Middle East, and they gathered these different seeds all over. And there are two places that the U.S. the National Seed Bank is kept, and one of those is in Aberdeen, Idaho, not far from here.
Wow.
And so I requested from them all of these varieties of Einkorn, and I have them at my house. And it's interesting to look at all the different seeds, the different shapes, sizes, and colors of those seeds of just Einkorn.
Mhm.
And so with that said, if you go buy Einkorn somewhere, it's not necessarily the same Einkorn. So you might, you could go do research online and just look at all the different people selling Einkorn. And there are about 10 different varieties of Einkorn that are commercially available. And we've taken those and we've tested with them, and we narrowed it down to 3 that we were looking at from an agricultural standpoint, baking, and flavor. And so looking at those 3 different aspects of it, which one of those performs the best? And the biggest difference between the varieties is winter Einkorn, meaning it's planted in the fall, it grows over the winter, versus spring planted Einkorn. And we found that the baking quality of the spring planted Einkorn is far superior to the winter. So you have to be careful when you buy Einkorn, because the winter Einkorn yielded much higher. And but from a baking standpoint, it was like cooking with, it was just like puddle, like soup. It was very soupy, just the glutens didn't hold together. And you can kind of expect that even with winter wheat versus spring wheat. The spring wheat is usually going to bake a little bit better. And that's definitely true of Einkorn. Anyway, so then among the spring varieties, we've done testing, and we are moving to it's not a new variety, it's a variety we've been testing actually from the very beginning, since we've been doing this in 2009. But we've decided to make that the primary Einkorn that we offer, and that will happen this fall.
Oh, so it's something different than what you're currently offering,
Right.
a different strain, so even better.
It is. We think it's comparable on baking, but the flavor is better, and it seems like it doesn't lodge as much in the field, so it does a little bit better there. And we'll have more information as we continue. We've been growing both side by side, and
You'll have that information on your website,
yes.
einkorn.com.
Right.
Okay.
When that comes out, we will. But we haven't shared this publicly yet. But all this is in the field. I'm saying it's like literally planted.
Oh, nice.
And so it's a development that is underway right now, and we're excited about it. We think you may have compared our Einkorn to other types of Einkorn in the past, and you'd notice the seeds were much smaller and they were darker in color. This Einkorn is a little bit bigger. The seeds are a little bit bigger, and they're lighter in color. And so visually, you'll notice a difference. Like if you saw them side by side, you would see the difference.
So I have some bags stored just because I like to buy them in bulk, and then I use them as quickly as I can. Can you tell us about anything you know about how long you can store it? Is there any pros and cons to it being in bags versus buckets, or any of that kind of stuff?
So when we sell the pails that we sell on our website, this is how we package them, and then I'll address kind of more generally what you can look at. But when we package for long-term storage, we take a Mylar bag and we put the grain inside of it, and then we put a 2,000 cc oxygen absorber in there, and then we heat seal that Mylar bag, and then place the Mylar bag in the pail and put a sealed lid on top of it. That's very, very good long-term storage. But if it's sitting out in the sun and the heat, the worst thing, the thing that causes the highest degradation of nutrients is changes in temperature. So if it's going from cold to hot, over and over. And here we have pretty big variations in temperature. In the middle of summer, we can get down in the 50s and then, up in the 80s or 90s in the day. And that's not good for it. So we want to keep keep it in a cool, dry, dark place, no matter how you store it. And if you don't do the long-term pail storage that we do, you can buy all the supplies to do that yourself. But even if you don't do that, you can just store it in bags. If you're living in a place like Idaho where the humidity isn't really high, it will store a long time. We've kept it for, we've baked with Einkorn 5-6 years old, just sitting in bags. Our Einkorn, it sits in a grain bin in the hole where it's preserved very well until shortly before we're ready to start shipping that to our customers. We bring it and we de-hull it. It goes into bags, and then from there it ships out to our customers. So we will move it from big tote bags down to a 5-pound bag or whatever you buy it in, or mill it in the flour from there. And our entire I meant to mention this before, but it has to do with the freshness of everything that we do here. Everything that we ship is packaged after it's ordered, and so we don't have packages of something that's just been sitting there for months or years. It's whenever you order, you're getting the freshest batch, whatever it is. And the same is true of flour. Often you'll see a date, a milled date after the date that you bought it. We put the date that it was packaged on every package, so you can literally see when this bag was packaged or when it was milled. And I think that gives people a lot of comfort, just knowing the freshness of their foods. It's hard to find something like that in the world. Even from companies like us, most of them are packaged them in bulk and it's sitting on a shelf and they're picking and shipping, which is better than some warehouse somewhere. But we try to take it one step further in terms of freshness.
Oh, well, I'm glad you mentioned that, because I think that is really important. I feel like we've covered it being safe for gluten intolerances, or is there anything else we want to say about that?
So we can't legally say, if you have a gluten sensitivity or celiac, you can eat this. But any customers are welcome and totally welcome to comment. And we had so many people comment about how, oh, I have celiacs and I can eat this, or I have gluten sensitivities and I can eat this. So we can't promise it, but it's sure worth a try if you feel like, you've been missing bread or, grain in your life. I mean, if it were me, I would certainly give it a shot and see, within what's reasonable for me. If you're going to drop dead, if you have it, maybe, be careful.
Yeah.
But,
well, there's a big difference between someone that has celiac as far as how it works in your body, and we'll go over that in a different podcast, and then sensitivities or intolerances.
Right. But we've had people with both talk about
That's
it. So
amazing.
I'm just saying that depending on what the risks are for you, that you do accept that risk. But,
right. You're not claiming that.
Right. But based on a lot of our comments, we've had very few, if any. Saying 100% is always a scary thing to do, right? But
sure.
We've had very few, if any, people say, "Oh yeah, I can't eat this," So
that's interesting. Now, would you correlate that with it being sourdough bread versus so any of the breads? Okay. So
we're talking about Einkorn, right? Not spelt.
Right. Einkorn being lower in gluten.
It's just a different kind.
Or a different kind.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay.
And sourdough does reduce the toxicity of anything, right?
Okay. Yeah.
We use microbes in the field to bring down the toxicity of the soil, so that the microbe ecology can thrive, and it's the same in our gut.
Yeah.
And so sourdough
we totally recommend sourdough
is the best way to bring down the toxicity of everything. And Einkorn has toxicity, and everything has it, and it helps to regulate all that. You have microbes that go there and do that fighting for you in advance. So
love it. I cannot wait to talk later about microbiome, by the way.
And I think that when you say toxicity, we should clarify. We're not talking about toxic substances that we put on the grade. We're not talking about that.
Right.
We're just talking about anything that might go into our bodies through anything that we eat that that something inside of our bodies are like, wait,
doesn't work quite right for us.
Whatever. Just the load it puts on the strain it puts on our bodies, right? We're not talking about actual toxic substances.
I'm glad you clarified that, because I knew that's what you meant, but that's really important. So let's talk a little bit about baking with Einkorn. Tell me what you know about that, because I have a feeling you know a lot about that.
I do know a lot about that. That's all I use pretty much. again, unless we're doing some recipe development for something else, but it really is our favorite. We feel like it's kind of the king grain and the cleanest, best thing we can put in our bodies. We have 7 children, so being without bread is not their thing, and so, but I don't buy it, I make it. So I would say that one of the biggest challenges with baking with einkorn is that it's already kind of a wet grain. It doesn't absorb water the same as wheat. So recipes just need to be adjusted, and you can either go to our website and follow the recipes that are already there and already adjusted, or you can take your own favorites and just play with it a little bit. So if it's something that you're familiar with, you kind of know what the consistency is supposed to be. What you should start with is lowering your liquid. So if you're making muffins and it calls for, almond milk or whatever it is, water, just maybe go down to like 2/3 of what it calls for and just see. Check it out, see, depending on how much flour your recipe calls for or whatever. Like there's not like a magic formula to this, but you will want to decrease the liquid at first to see. And the biggest concern that people usually contact us with is that their stuff has turned out to be bricks, too dense.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it doesn't need to be like that. What they're doing is adding the water the same or the liquid the same, and then they're like, oh, this is too sticky, this is too wet, I'm gonna add more flour and more flour and more flour and more flour. Don't do that. Less liquid, not more flour, because when you first of all, you throw off all the other ratios of salt and sweetener and baking soda or powder or whatever it is, eggs, whatever it is you're using in it, it like throws everything off. So you don't get the leavening that you would otherwise, right?
Yeah.
It's too much flour for that. So, and you haven't adjusted your other things. And so that's the problem. I will say that when I make bread, I need einkorn a long time. Some people don't. I've heard of some people who just say, I don't need my einkorn, I just throw it in, mix it in, and then leave it. And that is not how I do it. And I'm not saying it's wrong, but it's not how I do it.
Do you find a different result?
Yes, I feel like there's not much gluten in it, it's a different kind. It needs help developing through the kneading. And I find that like if you follow one of my recipes on our website, when you first add all that flour, you're like, too sticky. But after you've kneaded it for a few minutes, you're like, oh, this is actually perfect. This is gorgeous dough. So it really changes over that course of time. And I'm talking about bread, right? You're not going to need quick breads or muffin batter or pancakes or whatever.
Right.
So
this is like would you call this a sourdough bread or just
no, this
okay.
is just normal bread
and
that I'm talking
that
about.
You add yeast to and stuff, but then you're kneading it. Okay. Okay.
But I mean, I use a Bosch. I think everyone should. They're amazing machines. But this standard would apply to whatever way you make your bread, whether you're kneading it by hand or whatever. I put it in the Bosch and I let it knead for 10 minutes. And or dinner rolls, wow, they can be whole grain again. That's all we do. They can be so light, so, right, Jade?
Oh yeah.
Like so delicious.
I made a recipe on Sunday for Mother's Day. It was very good.
Yeah.
Nice.
And they're just super light and beautiful, but that is attributed to the 10-minute kneading time.
Good. Okay.
And so you really think when you first start, this is not going to work. And then when you shape the bread, the loaves, or whatever, when I'm doing dinner rolls, I put butter on my hands. But when I'm doing bread, I put water on my hands. I always, whenever I'm dealing with einkorn dough, I always have water on my hands.
To keep it from sticking?
To keep it from sticking to me. And sourdough, this is for sourdough too, as you know, well, because sourdough is a completely different conversation, right? As far as, it's just complicated. And anyone who does sourdough knows that there's more to it than just making yeast bread. And we do both. Like if I wake up in the morning and I had forgotten to feed the start the night before to get it ready for the next morning, then I just make the bread.
And is that a shorter process to make bread with yeast as opposed to
2
sourdough?
hours. I mean,
Okay.
start to finish.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's
If
good.
that.
That's good to know that works so well, but it does take extra kneading. So I'm glad that you mentioned that.
Yeah, and then so yeast. I mean, that's the reason we have cookies, and it's not my favorite thing to do. It's a concession for sure, right? But it's better than running to whatever grocery store and picking up some bread if my kids need sandwiches.
For sure.
If that's our splurge, I'm gonna give that to myself.
Yeah. Nope. I totally understand that.
Like our cookies are whole grain. If we do that, it's gonna be fine. But anyway, so that's my biggest tip in cooking with einkorn is to watch the moisture.
Okay.
And it's best, like as we develop recipes and put them on the site, we'll go by the weight. So if people do buy the flour, the whole grain flour, they know what the weight is. If they buy the berries, they know what the weight is. It doesn't matter, right?
Mm-hmm.
This many grams of berries versus this many grams of flour, it's the same. So we feel like that makes it easier for people.
Is that how you would recommend someone weighing? Is weighing the berries as opposed to the fresh ground flour?
Yeah, because you only grind the number of berries that you need. Like we don't have any leftovers.
Okay.
I literally weigh it.
Uh-huh.
I mean, just keep a kitchen scale right there. It's not hard. The kitchen scale is like $15 on Amazon, no big deal. And so I really recommend that everybody get one of those, and then you just weigh the berries on the kitchen scale, put the bowl underneath the spout and dump it in, and it comes out. You don't have to measure it again. That's it.
Oh, that's good.
So
well, thanks for sharing that. I was visualizing weighing it afterwards, so
yeah, no,
that way much better.
Yep.
Well, that's great. So how long have you been doing this, and how did you get into it?
So a friend of mine, we were at our children's choir concert, and this was in 2009, and he said, Jay, there's this really this ancient grain that I had never heard of before, and he was telling me about it. I was like, I haven't heard of this either. He said it was einkorn, and I grew up on a farm where, I loved the farm and I loved everything we got to do there, but we would take these commodities, and we were growing everything that our neighbors grew. We took it to the elevator, and they'd tell us a few weeks later what it was worth. It wasn't the type of a thing where it wasn't a model that was easy to work in. And I thought, well, if I am ever going to farm again, which I would love to, I want it to be doing something that we eat as a family and that matters in the world, it makes a difference. And so when I heard about einkorn, I thought, maybe that's it, I don't know. And so I started researching and looking into it, and it was interesting. Getting our first seed, we started working with somebody from Germany and had a translator back then you didn't have Google Translator, right? So we got a translator to help us and facilitate it, and finally got him to ship us seed, and we planted that. And the first year that it was planted, it was totally lost. And so I kept a little bit, and I planted that the same year on my dad's farm, and it did very well. And so I don't know what happened on that other field. It was anyway. We've tested with it since then, and we've had some situations where it didn't do well. So fortunately, we had 2 fields planted, and we got some and kept taking care of that. And then another one of the varieties we worked with came from the seed bank, and so it was one that had the characteristics that were attractive, and tested it and worked with some farmers in Washington actually to develop it, and then we eventually took over that einkorn variety entirely. And then another one, we worked with a farmer who was visiting Egypt, and he got it from Egypt and brought it over actually in the 70s, and he had been playing around with it, and he has passed away, but very interesting. So these different varieties of einkorn, over time, we planted it for the first time in 2010, I believe was the first year we planted it. And then obviously we got our website einkorn.com up, and we started finding a way to get it shipped to people, and just little by little it's grown. And in 2018 my younger brother joined us, Jackson, and he has designed, he's a mechanical engineer, so he's designed all the systems for cleaning. And anyway, between Julie's recipes and Jackson's wife bakes as well, and Katie's her name, and they've helped us to grow this, and we've really built it into a nice farm family meal. and it's, where it allows us to produce the crops on our farm, to clean them on the farm, and then to ship it to our customers, food to table.
Yeah.
And so it's not the farm I grew up on, but it has everything that I hoped one day it would. I didn't actually think I'd ever farm, but it has been happening, and we keep getting pushed in this direction, and so we keep at it.
I will say that we left corporate America to do this on purpose. Like, it was a lucrative, Jade had a lucrative job, it was good, but it just didn't feel, it felt kind of soulless, And so our money is where our mouth is, so to speak, on this one. Like, we really ditched a certain kind of lifestyle for this, like to live a more authentic lifestyle and live close to the land. And farming wasn't new for Jade, it's new for me. But he, when we got married, we never really imagined that that's what we'd end up doing. I didn't think I wanted to be a farmer's wife anyway, but it's turned out to be, with the exception of planting and harvesting those weeks, it's actually really a great life.
But you're doing such a great thing by offering stuff
Right,
to people
and
that
it matters.
Yeah.
It actually, it feels like it really matters. And I'm not saying nothing in corporate America matters, but for us, this just feels like a lot better use of our time and energy and our kids. I mean, our kids are moving pipe out in the fields, and they help with the packaging, and it feels like a way that we can live an authentic life, like more together. Dad's home, I'm home, so
that's great.
one of our sons, he's in college, and he does the content creation for the the stuff we put on Instagram, the videos, and the photographs and stuff like that. He does a great job with that. So anyway, yeah, it really has been, it's a sweet life and a good life, and it's one that we're committed to.
And when we first started, we were only using this for ourselves. We were eating it as a family, and Julie's baking with it. We were having a lot of fun with it, and then we started shipping it to people, and there was a lot of interest in it from all over the world. And it's the amazing, the customers that we work with are different than anything I've ever done. They're they're nice people. We've never had someone that didn't pay us. It's really amazing to work in this business with the type of customers that we do.
Mm-hmm.
I, in my previous work life, did a lot of customer service management, that kind of stuff. And just the people that we're dealing with are such good people. And we'll get letters of appreciation and support in so many ways, including, people's loyalty to the business and ordering and helping us to improve. And we're committed to it. And we want to offer other products, it's trying to get the facilities for that to do it. But we want to make this available to people, and so they know they can get it, and they know what kind of food it is for them. And we're glad to be on this end of it now, where we actually have the land that we're growing it on, and we have control over it from an organic standpoint and a regenerative standpoint. We've come a long way, and to be able to have our own facility to do it in. We feel like we have a long way to go, and unfortunately, it is expensive to buy equipment, and machines and stuff are unbelievably expensive, even compared to a few years ago. But we're committed to it. If we can just continue to evolve and improve and serve our customers, I think it can be around for a long time. So.
Well, I really appreciate you taking the time to talk to us today, and I especially appreciate that you put so much love and care into this particular food item that you grow. I know it's hard to do organic, and it's hard to find it, and I just really appreciate that effort. So I'm sure there's other people out there that appreciate it as well, that are ordering from you, and hopefully we'll find you some new people that are looking for those qualities, and now they know somewhere that they can find it and can appreciate that $3 something a pound is totally reasonable. It was really great learning from both of you. I hope that those that have listened have learned a lot, and if they have questions, they can reach out to you.
To be your healthiest self, join me each week as we talk about a new topic that can help you, your family, and your loved ones in your life to be your healthiest self.